In a modest apartment in suburban Munich, an elderly woman sat surrounded by photographs of the Third Reich's most notorious architect of genocide, her father. For 73 years, Gudrun Burwitz had woken each morning with a singular mission: to rehabilitate the name of Heinrich Himmler, the man who orchestrated the Holocaust. While the world moved forward, she moved backward, attending clandestine gatherings of aging SS veterans, channeling funds to war criminals in hiding, and whispering to anyone who would listen that history had gotten it all wrong. Her death in 2018 closed a chapter that should have ended in 1945, leaving behind a chilling question about where devotion ends and complicity begins. The suicide that escaped justice created a moral vacuum that would never be filled. Himmler's death denied the world what Nuremberg provided for other Nazi leaders: testimony, evidence, condemnation. His crimes remained unspoken in a courtroom, his victims unacknowledged by the perpetrator himself. The inheritance he left his daughter wasn't wealth or property, but something far more poisonous: an untested legacy, a narrative she could shape however she wished, unchallenged by her father's own words under oath. Papa's little princess knew only devotion. Born in 1929, Gudrun Himmler grew up in the shadow of her father's rising power. But to her, he was simply Papa. Heinrich Himmler, orchestrator of genocide, doted on his daughter with genuine affection. He brought her gifts from his travels, wrote her tender letters, took her to SS functions where uniformed men smiled and treated her like royalty. She accompanied him to concentration camps, seeing what he wanted her to see: order, discipline, purpose. The evil surrounding her childhood wore a normalized face. While her father designed the machinery of mass murder, Gudrun experienced only his warmth, his pride in her, his protective love. She had no framework to reconcile these two realities, no reason to question the world he built around her. By the time British soldiers found Himmler's body, Gudrun's identity had fused completely with her father's honor. His death didn't end that bond. It crystallized it forever. The world declared war on memory, and Gudrun found herself the target. 15 years old, suddenly fatherless, she watched as everything she'd been taught to revere became humanity's greatest shame. The Nuremberg trials broadcast her father's crimes in excruciating detail. Newspapers published photographs from the camps, testimonies from survivors, evidence of systematic extermination. The man she called Papa was now synonymous with evil itself. Allied forces detained her and her mother, interrogating them, searching for hidden Nazi treasures, treating them as extensions of Himmler's guilt. Gudrun spent months in internment, stripped of privilege, confronted daily with her father's legacy. Other Germans began the painful process of reckoning, of accepting uncomfortable truths. But for Gudrun, acceptance meant betraying the only parent who'd shown her unconditional love. Her identity crisis had only one possible resolution: reject the world's judgment or reject her father. She chose defiance. That choice, made in grief-stricken adolescence, would define the next 70 years. The fork in the road appeared as Gudrun entered adulthood, and she chose her path deliberately. Released from internment, she faced the same choice, confronting millions of Germans: acknowledge the past or deny it. Around her, former Nazis' children took different routes. Some changed their names, fled to distant countries, spent lifetimes atoning for sins they didn't commit. Others quietly accepted their heritage's darkness while building new identities separate from their father's crimes. Gudrun rejected both paths. Throughout the 1950s, as West Germany underwent denazification and began its painful moral reckoning, she moved in the opposite direction. She sought out other true believers, the unrepentant remnants of her father's world. She attended gatherings of former SS members, not as a curious observer, but as an honored guest. She began defending her father publicly, insisting he'd been misunderstood, maligned, that history had distorted his true character. This wasn't childhood trauma speaking anymore. This was conscious choice, adult conviction, deliberate allegiance. Choosing the unthinkable became Gudrun's life mission, and she pursued it with chilling determination. By the 1960s, she'd transformed from grieving daughter into active propagandist. She gave interviews defending her father's honor, claiming he'd been a good man caught in impossible circumstances. She dismissed Holocaust evidence as exaggeration, Allied propaganda designed to humiliate Germany. Her public statements grew bolder with each passing decade. But words were only the beginning. Gudrun joined Stille Hilfe, Silent Help, an organization dedicated to supporting former SS members. Not the conscripted soldiers or reluctant participants, but the true believers, the war criminals, the men who'd carried out her father's orders with enthusiasm. She helped arrange legal defense for SS officers on trial, raised funds for their families, visited them in prison. She attended neo-Nazi rallies and far-right gatherings, lending her name and her father's legacy to movements that celebrated what he'd represented. This wasn't passive loyalty anymore. This was ideological commitment, active participation in keeping National Socialism's flame alive. While Germany built memorials to Holocaust victims, while survivors testified about their suffering, Gudrun worked tirelessly to rehabilitate the perpetrators. She became a living symbol of unrepentance, proof that some wounds refuse to heal because some people refuse to acknowledge they exist. Her defiance wasn't weakness. It was conviction. The network of the unrepentant became Gudrun's true family, and she rose to prominence within its shadowy ranks. Stille Hilfe, founded in 1951 by a former SS princess, operated as an underground railroad for war criminals. The organization helped SS officers escape prosecution, flee to South America, establish new identities. It provided legal defense, financial support, and moral encouragement to men the world had condemned. Gudrun didn't just join this network. She became one of its most influential figures, eventually serving in leadership positions. She used her father's name strategically, opening doors that remained closed to others. Former SS members revered her as living royalty, the daughter of their beloved Reichsführer. She attended their secret gatherings, where aging men in civilian clothes reminisced about the Third Reich, shared coded Nazi salutes, and lamented Germany's supposed degradation. The network's reach extended beyond nostalgia. It actively supported convicted war criminals, including concentration camp guards and Gestapo officers. When these men faced trial, Stille Hilfe mobilized resources for their defense. When they were imprisoned, the organization ensured their families received financial assistance. Gudrun personally visited SS veterans in prison, offering comfort and solidarity. This escalation from private grief to organized activism revealed the depth of her commitment. She'd built an entire life around preserving what the world had tried to erase, surrounding herself with people who shared her refusal to accept history's verdict. Germany moved on, but she didn't, and the contrast grew starker with each passing decade. The nation that produced her father transformed itself through painful self-examination. Holocaust education became mandatory in schools. Memorials rose across Berlin. Politicians delivered speeches acknowledging historical guilt. Young Germans grew up learning to confront their country's darkest chapter, taught that remembering meant preventing repetition. Gudrun remained frozen in 1945, eternally defending a father who'd been dead for decades. While Germany paid reparations to survivors, she paid legal fees for war criminals. While museums documented Nazi atrocities, she insisted on her father's innocence. The generational divide became a chasm. Younger Germans viewed the Third Reich with horror and shame. Gudrun viewed it with nostalgia and pride. She died in 2018 at age 88, having spent 73 years refusing to acknowledge what her father had done. No deathbed recantation, no moment of clarity, no reconciliation with history. Just unwavering loyalty to a memory the world had condemned. The uncomfortable mirror that Gudrun Himmler's life holds up reflects questions society prefers to avoid. She committed no crimes herself, ordered no executions, built no camps. Yet she spent 7 decades defending those who did, supporting those who had, celebrating what history had condemned. Her story forces a reckoning with where sympathy ends and complicity begins. Childhood loyalty deserves compassion. A 15-year-old girl losing her father merits understanding. But Gudrun had decades to choose differently, countless opportunities to break from her past, moments when she could have acknowledged uncomfortable truths. Instead, she doubled down, transformed grief into ideology, turned filial devotion into active collaboration with unrepentant war criminals. Her inheritance was tragedy. Her choice was defiance. The distinction matters profoundly. Gudrun Himmler proved that evil's legacy doesn't require continuing its crimes, only refusing to condemn them. Sometimes, the greatest moral failure isn't what someone does, but what they spend a lifetime refusing to see.